In Lowell, Massachusetts, in the early 1900s, this canal would have been an open sewer. Think foul smelling, disease carrying. If you lived in this building, you would not hang out on these, well, I was going to say balconies, but the photographer's caption does not call them balconies. Not balconies, galleries, dangerous galleries. What you're looking at is an original photo housed at the Harvard University archives. Likely the originals were on display in the early 1900s, apparently for study. Harvard had a social ethics department. This photo and others in the Harvard archives were also displayed in the 1912 social reforming book by Lowell's Reverend George Kengott. It came out of his doctoral dissertation at Harvard. Let's compare the author's and the photographer's descriptions. The author Kengott's description is just the facts, tenements of Irish and Greeks, rear view from Canal Bridge, Broadway. The photographer's is more specific and judgmental. Suffolk Street, framed tenements occupied by Greeks, Irish, Jews, dangerous galleries overhanging the canal from Broadway Bridge, and the word galleries. I'm going to get to that. Kengott's preface thanks Herbert T. Hope for the photos. The Harvard collection also makes an association. Both stop short of saying he clicked the shutter. Hope, then in his early 30s, was an engraver for the Mills. He knew Reverend Kengott as he was a member of his first Trinitarian Congregational Church. In another vlog, my colleague Brad McGowan makes a technical and stylistic case for Annie Powell as photographer. She would have been in her late 40s. Here, I'm offering other forensic evidence. Let me start with the word gallery. For Americans, gallery is strictly an interior structure. It would be the top balcony in a theater. We say peanut gallery. But in England for centuries, gallery is also an exterior structure. Here's an article. What all Americans would call a balcony. Herbert Hope, born in Dover, New Hampshire, he would write balconies. Annie Powell, born in West Yorkshire, England, she would write galleries. I'm not a linguist, but this also strikes me as British idiom. Corporation has stated that it makes but 2.25% on assessed valuation of its tenement property. I think Americans would say corporation has stated that it makes only 2.25%. To this very point, Kengott, who was born in Pittsburgh, uses only in his equivalent reference in his text. On the assessed valuation of the Dutton and Worthing Street properties, the income is only 2.25% net. Okay, native British photographer, but were there others in Lowell at the time? Yes, 2 others. And all 3 were from the same part of England, West Yorkshire. And all 3 have writing samples. So we can compare the writing samples to writing on the Harvard collection, like this, one of 5 versions of Housing Conditions Lowell. This is the 1918 draft card signature of John Dempsey. Born in England of Irish parents, he left for Lowell at age 16. Public records show he was a photographer in Lowell many years. The slants are far different, and he makes hairpin turns where the Harvard writer makes smooth turns. This signature is the 1898 naturalization form of John Powell. He was Annie's husband, and between 1893 and 1906, her photo studio partner. It looks close, but some quirky things include the O's join the next letter below for John, and in Harvard from above. Here's Annie's handwriting from 1919. It's the backside of a photo of the office staff at Appleton Mills. The abbreviations for housing conditions on the Harvard sample tell us this was quickly written, so we would expect the spacing to be tight. To normalize the 2 samples, I'm going to compress the lower, slower written Lowell. Then I'm going to move the Lowells next to each other. Given the variance everybody has with writing the same word even a few minutes apart, these, a full decade apart, look like the same person. Quirky capital L, same slant, same connections between letters, loopy lowercase l's at the end. Let's take another look at this block printing. I found a possible handwriting match. On this one, I defer to a professional expert, but this sample is taken from a circa 1901 photo from City Engineers, and it's almost certainly from Annie's pen. The comparison works if you believe the customer requirements at Harvard were different, if you believe they required letters with more ornamentation. But the basic style is similar. See bridge, for instance. The Harvard has fancy G, but otherwise looks similar. Also, people who analyze handwriting for a living know quirky punctuation. They would note the thrown-in period at the end of both. These are not sentences. The extra period is common in dozens of known samples of Annie's handwriting. Finally, the Harvard collection has 41 numbers which are likely matches with Annie's known numbers. Note the similarity in pencil pressure, the width of the lines. Experts in spotting forgery sometimes look at this first. It's hard to fake. Another idiosyncrasy: for freehand number sequences often enlarge one number. Enter eights often have this telltale quirkiness. Take a look at the upper right. They don't close. To summarize, we have numbers, block printing, we have cursive that matches her known samples. We have language that matches Annie Powell's mother tongue. History forgot her name. On the surface, someone else got credit for these images. But below the surface, speaking across a century of history through history, is the name Annie Powell.